Hello everyone and welcome back to our channel. Today, we are diving deep into the world of auditing, specifically focusing on general auditing principles and the crucial responsibilities of an auditor. We'll be breaking down some complex scenarios and providing clear answers based on the standards on auditing. Whether you're an aspiring auditor, a student, or just curious about how audits work, this video is for you. Let's get started. Our first scenario involves Studio Limited and its joint auditors, RST and Associates and XYZ and Co. A significant understatement in trade receivables was found, and RST and Associates handled that work, but there was no documentation of work division. According to SA 299, Joint Audit of Financial Statements, joint auditors must mutually discuss and adequately document their work division. While each joint auditor is responsible for their allocated work, all are jointly and severally responsible for undivided work, planning decisions, agreed upon matters, and overall financial statement compliance and reporting. In this case, RST and Associates is solely responsible for the trade receivables understatement because they handled that specific area. The lack of documentation is a clear violation of SA 299. Remember, documentation of work division is paramount for joint auditors to clearly delineate individual responsibilities and avoid ambiguity in case of lapses. Next, we look at Indo Limited, which outsources its accounting data processing to a third-party service organization. CA Harish, the auditor, needs to understand how this service organization impacts the audit risk. What factors should he consider? As per SA 402, audit considerations relating to an entity using a service organization, CA Harish must understand the nature and significance of services provided by the service organization, including their effect on internal control. The nature and materiality of transactions or financial reporting processes affected. The degree of interaction between the user entity and the service organization. The nature of the relationship, including contractual terms. This understanding is crucial for assessing audit risk. Understanding the service organization's role and its impact on the user entity's controls is crucial for assessing audit risk, even if the processing is outsourced. Our third question builds on this. Happy Hospital uses a system managed by CT contractors. CAZ, the auditor, is concerned about the effectiveness of CT contractors' controls. What type of report should he obtain? And what aspects should he consider when using it as audit evidence? CT contractors should provide a Type 2 assurance report as per SA 402. When using this report, CAZ must evaluate if the description, design, and operating effectiveness of controls are appropriate for the audit period, whether complementary user entity controls are relevant and effectively implemented, the adequacy of the time period covered by tests and the time elapsed since testing. If the service auditor's tests and results provide sufficient appropriate audit evidence for the user entity's financial statement assertions. A Type 2 report is essential for assessing service organization controls, but the user auditor must critically evaluate its relevance, timeliness, and the effectiveness of complementary user entity controls. Moving on to question 4, Fab Limited uses ATIA Private Limited for payroll, and ATIA provided a Type 2 report. ATIA also outsourced part of its operations to a subservice organization. CA Akram, the auditor, removed a reference to the service auditor's work from an unmodified audit report. Was he correct? Yes, CA Akram was correct. As per SA 402, the user auditor shall not refer to the work of a service auditor in an unmodified opinion unless legally required. If required by law, the report must state that the reference does not diminish the user auditor's responsibility. An unmodified opinion signifies the user auditor's sole responsibility for the audit opinion. An unmodified audit opinion implies the user auditor takes full responsibility. Hence, referencing a service auditor's work is generally prohibited unless legally mandated. Now, a critical topic: fraud. Arihant Limited's auditors initially decided revenue recognition wasn't a fraud risk, despite weak controls. Later, they found 43 crore rupees in unrecorded revenue, partly in the CFO's personal account. What are the auditor's responsibilities regarding fraud? Under SA 240 and SA 315, auditors must identify and assess fraud risks, presuming risks in revenue recognition. This presumption can only be rebutted in very simple cases. Here, with multiple revenue streams and deficient controls, the audit team should have recognized the fraud risk as significant. The auditor must determine overall responses to address these risks. Furthermore, Section 143(12) of the Companies Act, 2013, mandates reporting frauds exceeding 1 crore rupees to the central government. The auditor's presumption of fraud risk in revenue recognition is strong, especially with complex revenue streams and weak controls. Past experience alone cannot rebut this, and significant frauds must be reported. What happens when joint auditors disagree? In our next case, B wants an adverse opinion due to material misstatements, but A and C disagree. Is B bound by the majority? No, B is not required to go by the majority opinion. When joint auditors disagree on the opinion or matters to be covered in the audit report, each joint auditor shall express their opinion in a separate audit report. The main audit report will then reference this separate report, typically under an other matter paragraph, as per SA 706. A joint auditor's independence of opinion is paramount. This agreement necessitates a separate audit report, not adherence to a majority view. CA Shaily Goyal is appointed auditor of RUTE Limited, a listed company. The audit committee asks her to justify her independence, which she feels is beyond their purview. Is she correct? No, CA Shaily is incorrect. As per SA 260, for listed entities, the auditor must communicate to those charged with governance a statement of compliance with independence requirements, all relationships that may bear on independence, including fees for audit and non-audit services, and applied safeguards. Furthermore, the Companies Act, 2013, explicitly requires the audit committee to review and monitor auditors' independence. So, the audit committee's request is well within its purview. For listed entities, the audit committee has a legal right and responsibility to seek communication and justification of auditor independence. Imagine you're the auditor of a social media company facing new, stringent government regulations. How do you verify compliance, and what does this situation underscore for you as an auditor? To verify compliance, you'd examine the company's systems and procedures, like internal controls, employee sensitization, and engagement of legal advisors. This situation also underscores that the company's financial stability may be threatened by new regulations, creating management pressure and potentially a fraud risk factor that needs careful evaluation. New regulations necessitate verifying the company's compliance mechanisms and recognizing the potential for financial instability and fraud risk due to management pressure. Why are the inherent limitations of an auditor's ability to detect material misstatements far greater when it comes to non-compliance with laws and regulations? The reasons are several. There are numerous laws and regulations, many of which are operational and don't directly affect financial statements or information systems. Non-compliance often involves concealment, such as collusion, forgery, or management override of controls. Ultimately, whether an act constitutes non-compliance is a legal determination by a court. The sheer volume and operational nature of laws, coupled with the potential for concealment and the legal complexity of non-compliance, significantly amplify the inherent limitations of an audit. What should an audit team do if they suspect fraud that questions their ability to continue the audit? If a suspected fraud brings the audit team's ability to continue into question, they should determine professional and legal responsibilities, including reporting requirements to appointing authorities or regulators. Consider withdrawal from the engagement if legally permitted. If withdrawing, discuss the withdrawal and reasons with management and those charged with governance, and determine if there's a requirement to report to appointing authorities or regulators. Suspected fraud that compromises the audit's viability necessitates immediate assessment of legal obligations, consideration of withdrawal, and clear communication with governance and potentially regulators. C.A. Anand found child labor at NHT Limited's plants. Management claimed it was outside his scope. Is this acceptable? Management's reply is not acceptable. While auditors aren't responsible for preventing all non-compliance, SA 250 states that non-compliance with laws fundamental to operating aspects, like child labor, can have a material effect on financial statements due to potential penal provisions. C.A. Anand must ensure proper disclosure and, if not adequately reflected, express an adverse or qualified opinion. Even if not directly affecting financial figures, non-compliance with laws fundamental to operations, like child labor, can have material financial implications, requiring auditor investigation and potentially a modified opinion. Magnet Interiors Limited has joint auditors, AB & Co. and CD & Co., who met to divide work. Explain their responsibilities. As per SA 299, each joint auditor is individually responsible for their allocated work, including execution and evaluating internal controls for their areas. However, they are jointly and severally responsible for undivided audit work carried out by all. Decisions on common audit areas during planning. Matters brought to their notice and agreed upon. Ensuring compliance with statutes, reporting frameworks, and as in the audit report. Crucially, any matters relevant to other joint auditors' areas must be communicated in writing before audit completion. While joint auditors share collective responsibility for common areas and overall compliance, individual auditors are solely accountable for the execution of procedures in their allocated work segments. C.A. is auditing MNO Limited, which uses a service organization for accounting data. What understanding should she obtain about MNO Limited's use of this service? According to SA 315, C.A. should understand the nature and significance of the services provided by the service organization and their effect on MNO Limited's internal control. The nature and materiality of TRAN's actions or financial reporting processes affected. The degree of interaction between MNO Limited and the service organization. The nature of the relationship, including contractual terms. A comprehensive understanding of the service organization's role, from service nature and materiality to interaction levels and contractual terms, is vital for the user auditor's risk assessment. C.A. Uddhav, an engagement partner, lists auditor responsibilities, plan scope, and independence as matters to communicate to governance. What significant matter is missing from his list? The missing matter is significant findings from the audit. As per SA 260, this includes auditors' views on significant qualitative aspects of accounting practices. Significant difficulties encountered during the audit. Significant matters discussed with management, unless all governance are involved in management. Written representations requested. Circumstances affecting the auditor's report form and content. Any other significant matters relevant to financial reporting oversight. Beyond responsibilities, scope, and independence, communicating significant audit findings, including qualitative aspects, difficulties, and key discussions with management, is a critical component of auditor communication with governance. My Decor Limited's revenue jumped significantly without capacity change, and they need a new plant requiring huge capital. How should the auditor deal with this, focusing on fraudulent financial reporting risk? This situation presents excessive pressure for management to engage in fraudulent financial reporting to show a rosy picture for financing. This is a fraud risk factor. The auditor should consider this when assessing the risk of material misstatement due to fraud. Procedures should include substantive analytical procedures on revenue, using computer-assisted audit techniques for unusual transactions, and testing controls over revenue. Significant revenue growth without corresponding capacity increase, especially when management faces pressure for capital outlay, is a strong fraud risk indicator requiring enhanced substantive testing and analytical procedures. Internal auditor CA Ridhima reported deficiencies like unreconciled receivables and unreviewed credit limits. The statutory auditor found no action taken. What does this indicate? Management failing to remedy known significant deficiencies in internal control on a timely basis is a fraud risk factor for fraudulent financial reporting. It suggests an attitude that could lead to intentional dishonest acts. Unreconciled receivables can lead to misstatements, and unreviewed credit limits can result in funds tied up with risky customers due to collusion. Unaddressed internal control deficiencies, particularly in receivables and credit limits, signal a significant fraud risk due to potential intentional misstatements and collusion. First Insurance Brokers Limited received a notice from DGGI for allegedly creating fictitious invoices of 50 crores rupees, and IRDAI was informed. Does this affect the statutory auditor's responsibilities? Yes, absolutely. Investigations by government and regulatory bodies indicate non-compliance with laws and regulations. Creating fictitious invoices is a serious offense with potential penalties and imprisonment, having a direct material effect on financial statements. Violation of IRDAI regulations can also lead to fines and litigation. The auditor must understand the nature and circumstances of the act, obtain further information to evaluate the financial statement effect, discuss with management and governance, and consider legal advice if needed. They must also evaluate the implications on audit opinion and risk assessment. Regulatory investigations and alleged non-compliance, especially involving significant amounts and potential penalties, directly impact the audit by creating a material risk to financial statements, necessitating deep investigation and potentially legal counsel. CA Vallabh Sundar considers IT systems and controls a key audit matter for a bank. When should he communicate this, and what are the considerations? As per SA 260, communication with those charged with governance must be timely. SA 701 suggests communicating preliminary views during planning and further discussing during audit findings. This allows for robust dialogue and clarification, and helps governance understand the basis for the auditor's decisions and consider new disclosures. Providing a draft report can facilitate this discussion. Key audit matters should be communicated proactively and iteratively throughout the audit, starting with preliminary discussions during planning, to ensure a robust dialogue and allow for enhanced disclosures. Finally, 4 audit firms jointly audited KNB Bank. Work was divided by zones, but IT systems and controls was a common area. Des and Associates performed batch processing controls testing. If there are lapses, who is responsible? In common areas, joint auditors are responsible for the appropriateness of planned audit procedures. However, the responsibility for individual execution lies with the concerned joint auditor. Since Des and Associates performed the testing of controls over batch processing, Des and Associates would be responsible for any lapses in performing those procedures professionally, even though the planning was joint. While planning for common areas is a joint responsibility, the actual execution and any resulting lapses fall squarely on the individual joint auditor to whom the specific task was assigned. And that concludes our deep dive into auditing principles and auditor responsibilities. We've covered joint audits, service organizations, fraud detection, independence, and key audit matters. Understanding these standards is vital for maintaining the integrity and reliability of financial reporting. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe for more insights into the world of finance and auditing. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.